Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, back with another midweek episode. And we're ranking today, Sam.
Back again with the midweek episode. Yeah, we are ranking today. We got a whole half an episode of ranking, and it's going to be brilliant. And there's other things we're going to be talking about because Formula One is in that winter period. It's dark, it's gloomy. So we're trying to come up with nice, fun things. And there was a list published recently about teammates. I'm doing the intro. It's Ben's segment. I'm just taking over the whole show.
That's all right.
Should we swap roles for a day? We've done that before.
We're never doing that again.
Never again.
No, sure?
Never again. The world doesn't need that.
You just don't want to do all of the ad breaks and the intro.
I just poured tea down myself.
Oh, you just actually spilled tea on yourself?
Fortunately, it's actually just like a lemon water, but yes.
A lemon water?
I am slowly scalding.
Well, at least you're not quickly scolding.
There you go. Well, that's my outro sorted.
Yes, we are ranking the driver lineups on today's episode. We've got. I don't know about you. This was tough. The amount of rookies in the field this year made this more difficult than what we usually have to do because it's not the first time we've done this. But
no, true. It's also not just the three of us that we're looking at for this ranking list.
Kirsty is too. Oh no, sorry, I'm only joking. Sorry, Kirsty.
I'm interested in seeing Kirsty's ranking though. So if you. Yeah. All right. We'll see what Kirsty has as well, because what Sam was actually referring to was the Discord. We put a link to a survey in the Discord, and we're going to get your consensus. So we've had over 100 people vote on that. We'll see how far aligned or afar you are from what we're doing. So all 10 lineups for 2025, we're going to do 10 through 5 in this first segment, and then we'll 10 through 6 in this first segment, and then 5 to 1 after our first break. So, Sam, you can kick us off. Who's got the worst lineup on the grid for 2025?
I have to agree with you. This was tougher than I expected, especially this back end group. I actually felt the first second, I was quite happy with where the rankings lied, but this kind of 10th or 9th in the list, I was like, oh, so shocked myself a little bit here, but I've gone for the Racing Bulls team in 10th place. Yuki Tsunoda and Isaac Hadjar in 10th place. And I feel like I'm doing a little bit of disrespect to Yuki Tsunoda here, but you've got to think about the balance of that team. And whilst Yuki has got some fantastic qualities, he's a Hall of Famer here, which sends him sky high, of course. He's that fiery personality, but he just can't seem to do middle parts of the season. Brilliant at the start, brilliant at the end, can't seem to deliver the whole way through, despite having a very good year last year. I think Hadjar feels like the least known quality for me out of all the rookies coming through. So when you pair the slight inconsistencies of Yuki Tsunoda with the lowest rated, in my opinion, rookie coming through, there's a lot of potential in that team, but currently for the year, I don't think it's truly realized.
It's a good time to bring in the people on this one, because the consensus from the people is that you're wrong, Sam. They don't have the worst lineup. In fairness, it was very close, but the people think Alpine have the worst lineup. Harry, who do you think's got the worst lineup?
I've actually not put mine in order, so somewhere in between 10 to... I'm only joking, folks. I agree with Sam. I've got the Racing Bulls, and again, it does feel slightly harsh on Yuki Tsunoda, but to be honest, it's more the unknown of Isaac Hadjar in respect of Formula One, because I mean we'll get to the other teams later on. There's only a couple on there that are unknowns, and their teammates I rank higher than Yuki Tsunoda, and that's kind of how I've come to this conclusion. So, that's basically the reason. Tsunoda was better, much better. He had his best year in F1 last year, but he is inconsistent quite often, and I think that does let him down. That might have, if his consistency had been better, that might have got him above. He will have got in 9th. But yeah, that's my reason, really. I just think it's not like it's a terrible lineup, and I feel like we should caveat this. The quality of F1 drivers these days, very good.
Go back to like 2003.
Yeah, we used to have some
Not even that far.
No.
I mean, Carter Game was still going in 2012.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's not who I was talking about.
Oh, sorry. Who were you talking about?
anyone other than Carter.
Than the
Michael
GOAT.
Schumacher was in that field.
Yeah. But my point being, this is well, for this from my side, this isn't us slagging off these driver lineups at the back end of this list. They're just not quite as good as the others, who are very, very good.
The people are wrong. We're all right. It's Racing Bulls. They're the worst lineup for me. Same reasoning as what you said, Harry, in that you've got so many teams at the back end of this grid, or what we expect to be the back end of this grid, where you've got a more experienced driver and you've got a driver that's either a rookie or very close to a rookie. So ultimately, I think it is actually Tsunoda that's putting them 10th rather than Hadjar. Hadjar's an unknown quantity at this stage. I think he's got potential, Hadjar. His career in junior formula, I think, was solid, but maybe not as spectacular as some of the other rookies that we've seen come through. But I think his raw pace in F2 last year was probably the best in the field. So there is a chance he could be good. The question is the consistency and how early he can get up to pace. And then from Tsunoda's perspective, you just look at some of the other more experienced driver of the pairings, and Tsunoda, who has had a solid last couple of years, just falls short of where some of those drivers are. So, yeah, I've agreed with you both. I've gone with the Racing Bulls team. We still need to figure out our 2025 nickname for them, but I've gone with them in 10th. Of course, we've got Kirsty's here. Kirsty's gone for... She's actually agreed with us.
No way, Jose.
Well, that's the first time in about 2 years.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, Kirsty thinks it's Racing Bulls, and she's also messaged through to say the reason is she hates Tsunoda.
Yeah.
She loves his auntie, though.
Hey, wow. We've got anti-Tsunoda coming up later on in this list for sure. All right. Should we move on to the penultimate place in this list, 9th? Sam, who's 9th?
Well, this is where I would have agreed with the people had they put this place in, because they went last. I'm going 9th. The difference maker out of that pack 4 is Pierre Gasly, in my opinion. He is significantly better than I think anyone else in that top 4. He comfortably bested Yuki Tsunoda. I think he elevates Jack Doohan's. We're not sure, right? We're not sure where he's properly sitting. A bit unknown, but not as unknown as Isaac Hadjar. He's done the one racing, essentially driving around in a pink box that hasn't got anything to do other than his legs that are running around that racetrack. It is Gasly that elevates it. Gasly really is a bit of a dark horse, an unsung hero of Formula One. I do think he as an individual driver is really quite fantastic. But the unknown of Doohan, and probably the lower ceiling in terms of his potential, keeps them in 9th place rather than moving up. There was another driver that they had in Alpine, actually, that if they had Gasly and that other driver, I don't know if you've heard of him, it's called Esteban Ocon, they probably would jump right up, at least a good 3 or 4 positions, I reckon. But it's relatively unknown that he drove for them, and they got rid of him a while ago.
Never heard of him, actually.
No? Oh, well.
Yeah, controversial opinion to talk about someone I haven't even heard of. So
yeah, it doesn't exist.
So you've got Alpine 9th. Producer Kirsty agrees with you. She's got them 9th as well. Harry, do you agree with both of them?
It's 3 out of 3 so far. I have got Alpine in 9th. I'm with you, Sam. It's Pierre Gasly doing real heavy lifting here. Doohan, yes, is also an unknown. He's done one race, but quite frankly, as you said, it doesn't really count. He's an unknown quantity, but so it's Gasly versus Tsunoda, and Gasly wins out here. So that's why I've got them. Got Alpine in 9th. As you said, it would have been a better driver lineup had they had another experienced F1 hand in the other seat, but you can't do that at Alpine, so it's not allowed. So yeah, I've got them in 9th.
Yeah, I've got them in 9th as well.
Oh,
There's a lot of agreement early on in this episode.
Disgusting.
Yeah, same reason as well. Gasly is better than Tsunoda because we saw it, and Gasly was better than Tsunoda. They were teammates.
That did happen, yes.
It's crazy that we've got Alpine after what a great season Gasly had in 24, and in fairness, in 23 as well. In fairness, let's just say since he got dropped by Red Bull,
literally the race he got dropped, he's been
all
great.
Good seasons, yeah. It's weird to think he's in a lineup that can be considered 9th on this grid, but here we are. Doohan, I think maybe his ceiling's a little bit lower than the others, which doesn't make sense because he's quite tall for an F1 driver. But yeah, I think if you look at Hadjar, you look at Bortoletto, you look at Antonelli. I have slightly lower expectations for Doohan compared to those names. So, yeah, that's what put them ninth for me. And the people have just reversed what we've done. So they've put Racing Bulls in ninth. Eighth place, I think this might be where we start to get some variety, but we will soon see. Harry, eighth place.
I've put the Haas driver lineup in eighth place. Esteban Ocon and Oliver Behrman. Now, this one is where I've found it a little bit tougher. I've gone, and we'll go to seventh. I've gone for Ocon and Behrman. It's a solid lineup. Behrman is a more known quantity, certainly than more than Doohan and Hadjar. He obviously had a great debut with Ferrari. He then did a couple of races for Haas. They were less impressive, but not say awful. One was Brazil in the wet, terrible time to try and jump in a car. Although having said that, he was a little bit, I don't say hot-headed, but he was a little bit, I don't know, inexperience showed there. But yeah, I've gone for Ocon and Behrman. I think that's a fairly solid lineup. Ocon, not that he didn't have a terrible year, but you'd say Gasly was better than him in 2024, whether you put it down to reasons with the car, etc. But Gasly had a better year. And Behrman, yes, he's still relatively unknown. So I've gone for them in eighth. And I'll explain why when I be at seventh. More.
You have two disagreeers. Disagreeer number one is Kirsty, who's got Sauber in eighth place. Disagreeer number two, the people. I'm counting the people as one person.
I mean, they've been wrong altogether so far.
Well, the people agree with Kirsty. Also, Sauber in eighth place. So, Sam, this is where you tear it up completely and go for someone else. But Sauber, Haas, who's eighth?
Tearing it out completely and go for someone else. For me, and I think, this is going to get some groans. Alonso and Stroll are eighth place on this list. We love Fernando Alonso. Oh, I love that man, right? And he is not the Fernando Alonso from even 5 years ago. He's still incredible. And he is not the reason that they are in eighth place. But I think current Alonso, whilst fantastic, cannot constantly be dragging up the very, very, very poor and regularly inconsistent performing Lance Stroll. I'm sorry. I would rather now have the unknown of a really positive rookie that could come up and do something exciting that has great potential, such as a Bortoletto, who I haven't mentioned yet, or a Behrman, who I haven't mentioned yet. And as brilliant as Alonso is, he hasn't got the pace anymore of a Leclerc, a Sainz, a Russell, Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, right? He isn't there now. He has to be more smart with his driving. He has to come up with different ways to try and produce what the pace isn't there to do anymore. So that drops him back a little bit. But then Stroll is such a weak teammate that I genuinely think that Alonso, for me, beats Yuki and Gasly, but Stroll is only marginally above currently Hadjar and Doohan. And that's simply because they're unknowns and they haven't wowed me to death with their junior careers. So, yeah, I've got Aston Martin in eighth, and I was prepared to be roasted for this choice.
Not by us, but the people will.
I mean, the people will just go at us for many different opinions that we'll have up and down this list. I wasn't sure which way to go with it. I was really torn as to who to go with. I agree with Harry. I've gone with Haas in eighth. But it is very close, eighth, seventh, and sixth. So I think Ocon, as we know, I think Ocon's pretty good. In fact, if I were in charge of Alpine, which I think I have been in the past, I would have kept him. Weirdly,
would you?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
That's a controversial
Ocon
opinion.
and Gasly. You know what? Ocon and Gasly, their names wouldn't be said yet in this list because they'd be higher up the positions we're talking about right here. But yeah, I've gone with Haas. Ocon, good driver, but there will be a bit of adapting for him in a new environment. Behrman is tough to judge at this stage because he had a very good junior career, had a very good substitute appearance for Ferrari, had a very good first substitute appearance for Haas as well. I'm willing to put Brazil to one side, to be honest, because there were many experienced drivers that struggled that weekend. It wasn't just Behrman. The likes of Carlos Sainz, for example, had a really horrible weekend. His F2 campaign, I know Prema struggled in F2 last year, but it was odd how much he struggled versus Antonelli, who, of course, we'll get onto in a little bit, which just makes me just stop a little bit on Behrman and be like, I'd like to see a few more races if that's okay, just to put that F2 season in the rearview mirror. But it's a solid lineup. It's a solid lineup, but I've got them 8th. 7th place, Sam.
So this is where I have gone down the Sauber route. I've got Hulkenberg and Bortoleto. Hulkenberg has shown this season why he's still one of the drivers to have in your team. If you can't get one of the absolute, quote unquote, the big guns, you know, your Leclerc's, your Verstappen's, Hulkenberg is the guy to have in your team at the moment. And Bortoleto's the reigning F2 champion. He was sublime during his F2 season. I think he's one of these guys that's got a lot of real raw pace. And out of the unknown rookies, I'm not counting Behrman in the unknown rookies. We've seen 3 Formula One races from him. I've got some idea in my mind now. I think he's pretty much the top gun coming into this season. So he sits above Aston Martin, Alpine, and RB for me, because I think as a pairing, they complement each other really, really well. Bortoleto feels like he's got that raw, almost scary pace where he could bing it 10 races out of 24, but he could get the job done when it is clean. Hulk's Mr. Consistent. He's always pretty quick. He gets the job done. If the car is somewhat there, like it was right at the end of the year, they could be an outside threat for scoring some good points with this lineup. So for me, it does just sit in front of the Aston Martin lineup.
Harry.
I've got Hulkenberg and Bortoleto next. I appreciate Bortoleto is a complete unknown again in terms of racing in F1, versus Behrman, who has had time. So it comes down to Hulkenberg, and I think Hulkenberg. I know I banged on a lot about Hulkenberg last year, but he had such a good year, such a good couple of years, I should say, at Haas. But last year, especially, that he outranks Ocon and Behrman for me. So that's why he's doing the heavy lifting here in the way that Gasly was for Alpine. So yeah, I've gone for them mainly purely based on Nico Hulkenberg being quite so good over the past couple of years. Bortoleto, we don't know much about. If there was someone else in that other Sauber seat other than Hulkenberg, they could be at the back, quite frankly. But Hulkenberg's been that strong.
The people think Haas have the 7th best lineup on the grid. Of course, they've already used up Sauber. Similar for producer Kirsty, Sauber's already gone in 8th place, so it's Aston Martin in 7th for Kirsty, though she does admit that Stroll is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. Sorry, Alonso. My bad. My sight. I've agreed with Sam and Harry. I've got Sauber in 7th. I almost had them 6th because Hulkenberg and Bortoleto, that has a lot of potential as a lineup. Whether they have a car to do anything with it remains a question mark. But as you've said, Harry, 2024 was a great year for Nico Hulkenberg. So was 2023. And the only difference, I think, between the 2 years is he actually got a chance to show it more often in 24. But given in 2023, all he could do was qualify the car before the car decided it can't do races, he did that down to a T. Like the amount of Q3 appearances he made in that 23 Haas was ridiculous. So they are getting a very good driver in Nico Hulkenberg. And Bortoleto, you know, F3 champion and F2 champion in consecutive seasons. There aren't many drivers who can say they've done that. And all the drivers that have done that are doing pretty well in F1. George Russell, Charles Leclerc. Like it's a pretty exclusive lineup. So Bortoleto, I thought his consistency last year was pretty impressive. He's not been in his junior career someone like Antonelli, who just like from the moment go, it's like, okay, this guy's got F1 potential. Bortoleto wasn't quite like that. It's almost the second instance of it just clicks all of a sudden. And it came some point after his year in Freca and just before going into F3. At some point, it just clicked. And he's done very well the last 2 years. So I don't know if they'll have a good car, but I think they've got a good lineup.
I'm sure we will touch on this during the year. But Bortoleto is part of the Fernando Alonso management team. How does that work when they get together? I'm sure Fernando's wishing they're nowhere near each other on track ever. But what if?
Did you hear Alonso's very unbiased comment about Bortoleto?
No, could you remind
Enlighten us.
What comment was, please, Ben?
Is he the GOAT?
Bortoleto was the best rookie on the grid.
That man has no shame.
In fact, I think he said he's the third best driver in F1 behind Stroll and Alonso. Yeah.
Lance Stroll will be the world champion after he leaves. Bortoleto, who he manages, is the best rookie on the grid. Of course, Fernando, I love it.
Let's round out the bottom half of the grid. 6th place, Sam.
The only one I haven't mentioned from this trio that have come up is Ocon and Behrman. I was really impressed by Behrman when he came to Formula One, and I do think there is a situation where a driver doesn't fully gel with an F2 car, but actually they get into an F1 car and they just feel comfy. They get in, it feels natural, it feels good. Behrman's performance in Saudi Arabia was sensationally good. I don't think it could be said enough how difficult it must have been to not only get into a Formula One car, but Ferrari, to get into that Ferrari car, and not just at any racetrack, at Saudi Arabia at Jeddah, which is one of the most lethal racetracks we've seen for a long time appearing on the calendar, to score points, to beat out the likes of Lewis Hamilton and other great rivals at that point. He kept Ferrari in that title fight, because if they scored no points that race, come the end of the season, they'd have been even further off. It would have been that simple. Less points in the fight, but he got them the points that they needed. You pair that with Esteban Ocon, who I think got dealt an absolute crap hand last season. The start of his season was fantastic. He was right there with Pierre Gasly, if not beating Pierre Gasly for the first few Grand Prix. Then, of course, the incident in Monaco happens. He gets dropped. Well, dropped for the end of the season, but had to endure Alpine prison in the worst car they could ever create. And he just had to go around in an absolute turd of a vehicle, while Gasly got to reap all the benefits of scoring points. But the one time it was all balanced, when the rain came down and people had to get it on the track in Brazil, he finishes in 2nd place. At one point, he's pulling away from Max bloody Verstappen in a car that I've just described as a turd, because it wasn't equal to Gasly's at that point. Ocon has some serious talent, and I think if him and Gasly had equal equipment for the entire year, they would have gone right down to the wire again, as they did in 23. And if Gasly and Ocon were in the same team, I'd be putting them in the top 5 as a lineup. It really is that simple, Alpine. So for me, Haas have got themselves a lineup with a lot of potential and a lot of consistency. And if Behrman does hit the ground running like we saw with that Ferrari or that driving Baku that he had for Haas, I think they could have something there. If the car's good enough, this could be a real threat to that top end of the midfield.
You have an agreeer in producer Kirsty, who's also got Haas in 6th place. The people have got Aston Martin in 6th, as do I. Alonso's very good. I still think he's really, really good. And I don't care. People tell me, well, he's over the hill and he's got strollers. No, he's great. He's still great. And Lance Stroll, he's pretty bad, isn't he? But if we move on from Lance Stroll, I still think, to echo producer Kirsty's actual word, which was that Alonso is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. I still think that, I know he's not as good as some of the other drivers we've discussed, and maybe has less potential than some of the rookies we've discussed, but he's still, it sounds so patronizing, he's competent. Like, he's not awful, which is why I've got them 6th. And I'm going to guess Harry's got Aston Martin 6th, but we'll see.
Yeah, what you said, Ben. Alonso's quite good still. Sam, I think you put he does not have the raw pace of a Russell, Verstappen, Leclerc. I'd even say Sainz nowadays, which is quite frankly why 6th is the ceiling for this driver lineup. But 2024, I think you said this, Ben, he still had a really good year. I know over there was a dip in the mid part of the season, but also the car dipped with it. And I think Alonso just sort of lost interest, but it picked up again towards the end. I still think he had a really good year, and it went more under the radar because obviously weren't the great results to go with it. Some of the points finishes he secured towards the end, well, the ones at the start, obviously great. Some of the ones he did towards the end of the year where that car didn't deserve any points. It was almost like it wasn't fair to give that car any points. So that's why I've got them in 6th. similar as I said to Hulkenberg and Bortoletto, you take Alonso out of that equation, I think they're fighting for last place, that driver lineup.
Okay, that's going to round out 10 through to 6. On the other side of this first break on this episode, we're going from 5th to 1st. Welcome back, everyone. We're starting to get to the elite lineups on the grid. We've already given our thoughts on who's 10th down to 6th. So now we go from 5th to 1st. Sam, the 5th best driver lineup on the grid is?
Russell and Antonelli. I think Mercedes have got the 5th best driver lineup here. Russell is again probably doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and I am just slightly unsure on Kimi Antonelli. He is potentially the next Verstappen, Hamilton, Schumacher, right? A lot of people have come out and said that. And boy, that'd be a lot of pressure on a young man's shoulders. Now, he might think that pressure is for tyres, but cheers, I think that, yeah, thank you.
He's not Alan Shearer.
That man don't need pressure. But pressure can get to you, and also it can cause you to crack. And I do think that there's a risk that Mercedes don't look after him and they don't nurture that talent, and they see kind of maybe the glowing symbol of Max Verstappen coming over the hill if there is that weird change that keeps being rumoured, because Toto Wolff can't seem to let that go. And I think it might cause him to struggle if Russell comes out the gates and absolutely demolishes him. But equally on the other side, Russell has been fantastic for the last 3 years. Yeah, he lost to Hamilton in one of those years, but the most recent season, I know Hamilton didn't gel with that car. I know setups weren't great, but Russell was just relentless. Even when the races were not going his way, he got a lot of bad luck. I still stand by the fact that he would have had a much bigger gap to Hamilton in the points tally if he didn't get the bad luck that he got. The DNF in Silverstone, the disqualification in Spa, that's 2 examples alone of 2 things that set him out completely. Russell is a real talent, and I think if you gave him a shot at a world title, he could really go for it at this point. But because of that combination of such inexperience and such juniority in comparison to Russell, who is so well established now and so brilliant, there is potential for them to be much higher than 5th, but right now I can't comfortably say they are any higher than 5th.
Harry, who have you got?
I've gone for Sainz and Albon. Carlos Sainz had a great year last year, and I hope he rides that confidence and excels this year at Williams, because if it works, if the Williams project works out, this could be a great opportunity for Carlos Sainz. I really hope he doesn't let his head drop. I think there's potential he could have another great year. It won't be the same sort of greatness as he had at Ferrari, I suspect, but it could be great nonetheless. Alex Albon. The problem for me with Albon, this sounds ridiculous to say, I don't feel like he's much of a known quantity, because
he's had Verstappen and bad teammates.
Yeah. Verstappen he struggled against because he's Max Verstappen, as we've learnt. The teammates he's subsequently had have been Nicholas Latifi, Logan Sargent, and Colapinto for half a year. And Colapinto rizzed him a headache, I think. And that was only a few races.
Rizz a headache.
Colapinto knows how to.
Love that.
You're so cool. I have a headache.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. My point being that Colapinto gave him a bit of a run for his money, at least pace-wise, not consistency-wise, although they seem to crash almost the same amount in Brazil. So that worries me for Albon, because I actually don't really feel like I know where Albon stands, and that's why I've put him below the rest, the Mercedes and the rest of them, because you say Sainz and Albon, that's an experienced lineup in Formula One now. You think that should be high up the list, but I just don't know where Albon sits, so that's why I put him 5th, and I feel harsh for it, but I honestly don't know where he is and where his potential is, to be honest, because he's not had anyone to go against since Max Verstappen, who was a decent driver.
Yeah, not bad at all. Kirsty agrees with you. Kirsty has gone for Williams in 5th. This was very close for the people. There were not many points at all between 4th and 5th, but they've agreed with Sam and gone with Mercedes in 5th. I'm going to do the same. I've also got Mercedes in 5th. It was very close between these two, to be fair. But George Russell is knocking on the door of being a top 3 driver in the sport now after what happened in 2024. If he can have another season like that, then suddenly he's in the conversation for probably second or third best driver on the grid. Verstappen might be a ways out front in that regard, but he had such a good 2024. Sam, you've already gone through all of the unlucky moments that would have made it seem like an even better year for him. Antonelli, he's got a lot of potential. He has got buckets worth of potential, but whether we're going to see all of it in 2025 remains to be seen. If this was a ranking list of which team would you like for the next 5 years, they would definitely be fourth, if not probably higher than this. But at least for 2025, Antonelli has been, for better or worse, he's been rushed through the junior system. He's had one year in F2. He didn't have any years in F3. So he has really been rushed through quicker than anyone has in the last 5 or 6 years, I'd say. It might just be that he takes a little bit longer to get the consistency compared to some of the other rookies. Could be very wrong as well, just based on, again, the amount of potential he has. I expect a few times in 2025, and we're not going to get onto any bigger predictions in terms of championship and teammate wars today, but there will be times, I think, this season where Antonelli makes you go, wow, okay, that was pretty damn good. Are we going to get that 24 races? I'm more doubtful. So I've got them fifth. Fourth place, Sam.
I don't think it surprises anyone, but I'm going to give it the old switcheroo. And Williams are in fourth. Sainz had a phenomenal season last year. You got to remember he took a race out. And even then, he finished, less than 5 points behind Oscar Piastri, who was in that McLaren, which of course won the constructors. He was a brilliant secondary driver to Charles Leclerc and regularly gave him a great run for his money. He probably should have won COTA if the line through turn 1 was a little bit more favourable for him. And of course misses out because of that. He had a fantastic season, and Carlos Sainz is maybe one of the most underrated Ferrari drivers that we've had for a very long period of time. So the fact that Williams have got him, I think it's an absolute steal. I really think they've come down with absolute grab there, but it's an absolute burglary, a robbery to pick up Carlos Sainz at a team like Williams. And then Alex Albon. Now, I think Harry did Alex Albon a little dirty on his description there. I think Williams have been woeful for years, and the fact that he's regularly got them into the points, the fact that he's regularly beaten cars we know are faster time and time again. Yeah, he had a bad time against Max Verstappen, and the bit I do agree with is because, frankly, if you haven't noticed, that's Max Verstappen. Guy's won a few world titles, won a few Grand Prix, pretty darn good at the F1. Alex Albon's a very good racing driver, and I get the argument that he's had Latifi, De Vries, Sargent. Colapinto gave him a bit of run for his money to start with, and then he was quickly tucked away again after the first couple of Grand Prix. Albon is never going to be, I don't think, a world champion, a world beater. But he's a great guy to have in your car alongside someone like Carlos Sainz. And I really respect that partnership. Unfortunately, I highly doubt this season they're going to have any sort of machinery to do anything productive with it, which is a real shame.
I got it. Before people come after you, Sam, he didn't have De Vries as a teammate because he was having his appendix out.
Oh, yeah.
before anyone comes
De Vries
at you.
scored more points than Albon did on that day.
yeah. So
That is a fact.
put De Vries and Sainz in the car.
You're fair there. Sorry, appendix.
Really, it's just Albon showing weakness, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think he's removing the weakness to come back stronger.
I mean, as a team, they are so light this year.
So light, appendixless.
No appendixes in
Are they the only F1 team in history to not have an appendix?
Do you know what? Probably.
You know what? Let me check the stat book. I don't know.
Could you check the appendix for it?
Wait.
I'll have to drive around with appendixes in the cockpit.
Yeah, extra weight.
Turning up on his 1 foot.
Mike Wazowski.
Bless him.
I have Williams fourth, which shouldn't be a massive surprise. I definitely didn't consider them to be amongst the top 3 in this conversation. Carlos Sainz, he's not had it easy in F1. No, he's had a lot of good cars and a lot of opportunities to win races and get podiums, but he has not had it easy when you consider who are some of the best drivers in F1 right now. You'd probably say Verstappen, Norris, and Leclerc would be right up there. Sainz has had all of them for teammates. Like, he's had a really tough job against teammates in his career, and he hasn't been embarrassed by any of them. I mean, he beat Norris, but like he wasn't embarrassed by Leclerc. He wasn't embarrassed by Verstappen very early on in his career. I mean, he is a really solid driver, and you're right to say that Williams have really got a coup in picking him up. Albon, I accept your point, Harry. I am intrigued by Albon this year because I don't know what we're going to get. This is the first time that, in theory, Williams will have a somewhat competitive car and he will have a somewhat competitive teammate, which is really underselling what Carlos Sainz should be in that Williams. Whether they'll be close, whether Albon's experience at Williams helps him out, whether he gets absolutely demolished, I don't know, but I am intrigued. So, yeah, I've got them fourth. Harry, who have you got, Phil?
Did you forget where we were?
Yeah, I was like, who have I asked already? Sam. Who's the other one?
Yeah.
Have we done the people yet?
Yeah.
People. Yeah.
I'll have number 4, please, Ben. I've gone for Mercedes. It was close for me too. I just think like you said, Ben, Russell's year last year, the talent of Russell and the potential talent of Antonelli just outweighs it. I am prepared to be very wrong, as I often am on this one. And if Antonelli treats every single lap of the season as a quali lap, it could be an issue.
Sign me up.
I mean, sign me up, yes. But for this point, no. But yeah, if he does do that, then that could be a problem. But I just think the potential he has means that combined with the talent of Russell, they just outrank Sainz and Albon. But it was a real close one.
I reckon you'll be right, only because there's nothing riding on these.
Well, exactly. It's not teammate wars.
If it was teammate wars, you'd be wrong. But,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kirsty has got the same order as you, so also got Mercedes in fourth. The people have gone for Williams in fourth, which means all 4 of us and the people have got the same top 3. But
Well
in
done
what
to the people.
order? In what order? Harry, kick us off. 3rd place.
I have got to close my list. Sorry, I've got Red Bull, and I can hear Verstappen fans screaming at me now. He is sensational, and if there wasn't a driver in the second seat who was only a few races into their career, they've done a handful of races in 2024, an even smaller handful in 2023. I'd have that team higher up the list because Verstappen is sensational. Because it is Liam Lawson, and no disrespect to Liam Lawson, I just don't think that lineup is as good as McLaren and Ferrari. And yeah, it just says a lot about what we think of. Well, what I think about McLaren and Ferrari's lineup. That Verstappen can't heavy lift his way up to the top with all his skill, but it's just where I have them as a pairing. It's 3rd for me.
I've also got Red Bull in 3rd. And I know you're worried about people coming after you for that opinion, Harry. We are the only content creators out there, folks. Don't even bother to.
None others exist.
Apparently, there are actually some other content creators out there. Some of these, we aren't the only people doing this task. I've seen some lists have Red Bull in 6th, in 5th, even in 4th. And I respect everyone's opinions.
But grow up.
But can I please have what you're smoking? Because Verstappen in a shoebox would be 3rd. Like, he's really good. And Liam Lawson has proven he's pretty all right as well. Now, I will continue to say I think it should have been Tsunoda in that seat rather than Lawson. But Liam Lawson went into that RB AlphaTauri Minardi team and was pretty much on a par with Tsunoda from the off, which means that in theory, I don't know what's going to happen this year with Verstappen versus Lawson, but I don't think Lawson is going to embarrass himself more than Sergio Perez did, which might be setting the bar quite low, but I do think that Lawson and Verstappen is still good enough to be 3rd best because Verstappen's the best driver. I mean, Verstappen's the best driver in the sport? Like, do I need to say anything more? I don't know.
People are going to come for you for that as well, mate. So don't.
Probably. The people have got Verstappen in 3rd. Kirsty.
Just Verstappen.
Yeah. Kirsty has got Lawson in 3rd, but also says Verstappen might help out a bit. Sam.
Let's round it out 5 for 5, shall
Okay.
we? For me, there's no, I don't need to think or speculate. I don't think anyway.
I don't need to think.
End of conversation.
Full stop.
I saw it last season. If Ferrari and McLaren have a car that compete, Max Verstappen, even at the peak of his powers, is not able to lift that team above third place in the championship if he hasn't got a teammate that is unable to be up there with the rest. I respect Lawson. I think there's a lot of potential there. I really think he could go on to be something really good. I don't think he's going to be able to deliver much more than what. Let's put it this way. I don't think he's better than any other of those drivers inside that top 4 teams that finished in that order last time out. So therefore, why do I think that he could go out to beat a McLaren teammate or a Ferrari teammate? Max Verstappen is a generational talent. He's the best driver in Formula One right now and has been for the last 5 seasons, 4 or 5 seasons. Liam Lawson has got a lot to come, but I can't see it being delivered right this season. And it's a real risk with a rookie in that team, as we've seen it fail so many times. So I cannot put them above McLaren or Ferrari.
So we have agreement on the top 2 across all 5 of us. This was very close with the people. There was not a lot in the scoring at all, but the people think McLaren, the Constructors' champions, have the second best lineup in the sport. Kirsty also thinks that McLaren have the second best lineup in the sport. Sam, do you agree?
This, out of all of the rankings on the entire list, was the easiest 2 to decide for me. McLaren have the second best lineup in the sport. Lando Norris is becoming an absolute sensation. Went up against, as I've already mentioned, the best driver in motorsport last year. Didn't come out on top. No real shame in that. Had his moments where it wasn't brilliant, but equally had some moments where he was brilliant. And I think that coming into this year, he will excel again. Oscar Piastri, who is not only a sensational Formula One driver, is a comedic genius, because I once again watched a clip of him spilling his drink and going, "Oh, I've made a scene." And it is just so brilliantly timed. But I watch it for fun. And it's in a press conference. And I rarely watch the press conferences because they are dull. And that was brilliant. He is bringing brilliant pace. It's only his 3rd season coming into that. We've seen there are some inconsistencies there. I just need to teed out those potential moments where it doesn't seem to be right there with Lando Norris, but it's there, it's coming. I don't believe that he hasn't got it. He will turn up and be one of the very best. Just give it a bit of time. But for this season, I don't think it's quite there when I compare it to Ferrari, who I've obviously got in first.
Harry, I'm looking high and low for some variety here. Can you provide it?
No. McLaren are second. Their driver lineup is top quality, bordering sensational. It's just not as good as Ferrari's. That end of point.
Solid point there, mate.
It just isn't. And that's nothing against their lineup. Norris and Piastri are quality lineup. They won the Constructors' Championship for McLaren last year. If, as you've already mentioned, you can have a Max Verstappen in your car, but if your teammate's not, the teammate or the second driver's not up to scratch, you can't win a Constructors. Norris and Piastri delivered that because they were both, for the majority, at the sharp end of the grid together. In fact, so much so they had to start deploying stupid orders and team radio. So that's how good they are. It's just not as good as Ferrari this year.
Is it?
Oh, here we go.
Don't be silly. Don't build up this suspension for Clifton suspension bridge for nothing.
Nice.
They call me Brunel. I build that suspense.
Brunel Ben.
For no reason, I've got McLaren at second. Yeah. Look, there is a situation where, let's say, a third of the way into 2025, I realize I'm wrong. And it's actually McLaren. Because if Piastri takes a step forward, again, which we saw from year 1 to year 2, and Hamilton doesn't get back to where he was in 2023, McLaren will have the best lineup, probably. We don't know yet. So I'm banking on Hamilton will get back to form, because I don't think 2024 was a great season for him. And I think that's mostly an opinion shared by all 3 of us. I think he can recover that. I don't think it's too late for him. I think he will be reinvigorated as he goes to Ferrari and starts to deliver. Again, some of the 2023 performances, I know it wasn't a championship winning season, but in what wasn't a championship winning car, he delivered some excellent performances. I think he can return to that. And that's what my ranking is based on. But We'll see. It's still a very good lineup for old McLaren with Norris and Antti Tsunoda. So,
come and eat your dinner.
Anything else to be said about Ferrari being first? They've got Leclerc and Hamilton. That's pretty good, isn't it?
There's a god driving for them and also a 7-time world champion. It might be one of the best lineups of all time in Formula One. I think it's up there. If they deliver where you think they can deliver, if we get to the end of the year, we go, Hamilton was right on it, and that's the best season we've seen from Leclerc, it might be one of the best lineups in Formula One history.
What happens if, and I'm going to say this quietly, what happens if Ferrari, for the first time in ages, actually deliver a car that's capable of winning a title for Charles Leclerc, and he doesn't win it because of Lewis Hamilton?
Good.
Man has been there for 40 years.
I'm not getting into speculation because that might give away who your teammate was.
Very true. Very true. Well, that's our top 10 lists. A little bit of variety across all four of us and the people and the consensus we got from the people. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Is there anything completely out of whack compared to all five of our lists? Let us know. We'll take our second break here. On the other side, we've got some news from Cadillac. Welcome back, everyone. TWG Motorsports and General Motors have formed a new company to build the future Cadillac Formula One team's engines beyond its initial arrangement for a supply of Ferrari power units. TWG is the majority owner of the team, originally started by the Andretti organization, which will make its F1 entry under GM's Cadillac brand in 2026. The venture between the team's key backers was described as putting the squad on the path to being a full works team by the end of the decade. The new organization will be known as GM Performance Power Units, and a new facility for the company is set to be established close to GM's technical center in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2026. The Ferrari deal to supply Cadillac is expected to conclude ahead of the 2028 F1 season, which would be the team's third campaign in the championship. However, Thursday's statement suggests it could extend a year or two longer. First question on this one, Sam, is the end of the decade a reasonable objective for this Cadillac power unit?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually they've given themselves ample time to at least get onto a pretty level playing field, and they'll be clever about it. They've got a lot of smart people in that workshop that they've just opened. If anyone wants a little invite over to North Carolina, Charlotte, we've got a PO box, so you can send them straight to us, because the link's in down below. Get the address. 4 of us here, put the names on it, and we will promptly fly out there to do a podcast or whatever.
As long as you pay for us.
Preferably if you pay for the trip, yes. Equally, we'll just come out for Bants. Because
he's Rye Guy. He's North Carolina, isn't he?
Thank you, Rye Guy, the lesser known Discord legend. Yeah. We love you. No, this is I think a very sensible way of doing it. Unlike Alpine, who decided to chop up bits of their team and throw them to the wolves and then buy whatever they can at the chop shop. I think this makes a lot of sense for Cadillac. They can learn from Ferrari. They can take a lot of research from how the engine works. And Ferrari have made some pretty good engines. Out of all the things that Ferrari do well, the engine tends to be the bit that performs pretty decently. Tends to get them from A to B, you turn it on and it does the bit that it needs to do. So if Cadillac are sensible, they'll do a lot of research based on what they're using in their Formula One program. And I think this could be a great success. I don't think they're going to come out into 2030 and be the engine, the people to beat. But I definitely think there's a real sensible and realistic chance that they're on par with, the Honda, the Mercedes, the Ferrari. And if they can be clever, they can be smart in their aerodynamic package, why not have a go? I think it's definitely reasonable.
Harry, do you think this timeline's reasonable?
I mean, it's really important to note, firstly, that Saudi Arabia has reinvested a lot.
Someone say that.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Have you just said that?
I
heard that.
I just remembered that ridiculous comment. This timeline,
the comment that made it all make sense. Okay.
God, listen to the last podcast if you want context.
Look, this timeline is good. It's a good thing because we've seen it before with Honda, where they've tried to come in as an engine manufacturer and they've not given themselves enough time. And when they started in F1, I don't know if you noticed with McLaren, it didn't go very well. They were quite slow.
Good
point.
Pretty slow. It took them, they entered in 2015 with McLaren, 2019 they're winning races. So it took them 4 or 5 years to actually win a race. It's quite a long time. So giving themselves this buffer of end of the decade for Cadillac is a sensible move. We saw when Mercedes as well, before the hybrid era started, which is 2014, they'd started working on their engine in 2010. So I know it's not quite this same. I know they're still hybrid engines. It's not quite the same big rule change, but it's important for them to give themselves this buffer. So yeah, I think it's very sensible. They're going about this properly, which I am pleased to see. There's no, even though the entry is as of 26, there's no not urgency. I don't mean urgency, but they're not rushing to get an engine in the back of the car for the sake of the fact that they're entering very soon. And I am pleased to see that they're going about it properly, because the worst thing they could do is put an engine in the back of the car that's terrible, and it could ruin the whole project, because you have a terrible engine in the back of the car does badly, poor results, and the whole thing could get pulled because it's not bringing in the results or marketing or exposure that the company's after. So I'm pleased they're doing this the right way.
Yeah, spot on. It's far better than rushing it through, and it's far better to wait that extra year, because to Sam's point, Ferrari, and his famous last words I appreciate, probably going to produce a pretty good engine, because if Cadillac aren't winning, it's not going to be because of the Ferrari power unit. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that. So it's far better for them to wait that extra year to make sure that they aren't going to completely write off a year, because they're not ready. So yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. There is something of a risk for Cadillac, and that risk is present regardless of what they do, to be fair, in that we don't yet know exactly what they're going to do from like 2030 onwards in terms of the engine formula, because we have had comments from Stefano Domenicali in the last 6 months or so where he said he's open to changes in that 2030 formula, potentially to increase noise, maybe it's other things. We don't know where the world is going to be exactly. So there is an element of Cadillac will go full steam ahead on a power unit for this set of regulations. We might get to 28, 29, and actually it changes for 2030, in which case they might get a full 1 year out of it. So there is definitely risk to this. I guess the other added risk is Cadillac doesn't have many friends in the F1 paddock because no one wanted them there. So if you think they're going to get much help from any other team to indicate where the regulations might go, they're probably not going to get it. The only team that they have a relationship with is Ferrari, but it's probably not in Ferrari's best interest to help them move away from their power units, because that's helping Ferrari. So, but again, it's risky either way, because what do? Be cautious at this stage and not invest? Because at that point, you're never going to catch up with these other teams that have vastly more experience in the sport. So it is a little bit damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think it's safer to go for it, because otherwise you're not catching up with the other teams.
I think on that, you mentioned obviously they might get 1 year usage out of that. You obviously get the announcement well in advance. I think Cadillac would pivot very early if they found out we're going to deploy for 2019.
They should be the first to pivot.
Yeah, obviously. That makes a lot of sense. Equally, you'll remember, I think 2019, 2020, there were so many claims of F1 engines are too complex, they're too expensive. It's putting off manufacturers from wanting to join the sport because it just costs too much money to understand the technology to get involved in the sport. And that is changed a lot since that point, and that's why we've had so many more manufacturers want to be a part of it. We've almost got the most manufacturers on the grid that we've ever had, and that trend is set to continue come the end of the decade. So actually, I think Cadillac now are in a very good space to take their time to build that new engine, because hopefully the getting it wrong element shouldn't be as likely as what it should be if they have joined a decade ago. And they did what Honda did, where they built an engine in quite possibly the most complex engine time across Formula One's history at that point, where it was an absolute nightmare. So I'm hoping that with the time, the effort and the cash, they will get this one right and be relatively competitive from the bounce.
Harry, if you look at some of the other teams that have either entered the sport recently or are about to enter the sport, you've got Haas, who didn't have to worry about a power unit at all because they have ever since 2016 taken the Ferrari power units. And then you've got Audi who are about to come in, who are essentially adopting a base team that has been Sauber for as long as we can remember. With Cadillac, you don't have either of those. They're going to have to focus on building a team up and making this power unit in the background. Are there any concerns about development whilst they are, I don't know, getting up to speed with the sport?
Yeah, I'm sure there is going to be an element of that, but on the flip side, they're going to be in the sport, so they'll be learning as they go. And to be honest, that's probably the best way. You can have, I know this is quite a niche example, but you look at Toyota when they joined the sport in 2002. They had a whole year beforehand of testing in 2001. So they just tested and that's when you could test all the time. But you could do that now, I guess, because if you're not in the sport, you can test all you want.
And it worked, and they won the title.
Yeah, they won multiple titles. Alan McNish was the 2002 world champion.
Famously, the most successful driver and team pairing of all time.
Yeah, so folks, for anyone who doesn't realise, they were not successful. They won no races.
No racer. They won nothing.
My point being, you can be on the sidelines building up your resources, and Toyota, a big manufacturer as Cadillac are, you can be building up your resources, but whilst just solely focusing on that and not racing, and it can serve you no good. I don't think it's too much of a concern. I think it will actually serve them well to be doing this, because they'll be learning on the go about the sport, but also they'll be learning about just how the engine's running. It won't be quite the same, Ferrari and their own engine, but it will help. They'll just have all this data knowledge that I don't think they'll have necessarily otherwise. So it could, rather than be a hindrance, I think it could be a positive thing.
What do you think, Sam?
I completely agree. Completely echo what Harry said. I think you can do all the research in the world, but actually being out on track, experiencing it, being a part of the sport, gathering all that intel, it just makes your life easier. I'm not going to go on about it because he's absolutely hitting it out of the head. The Toyota example was sensational. Why don't you use Asda Pizza references or anything? Why do you actually use Formula One examples? No one understands that.
I just want to shout out Alan McNish and Olivier Panis more often because they deserve it.
They deserve the hype. So
so does Saudi Arabia, to be fair.
Shut up with Saudi Arabia.
They have reinvested a lot.
Ben Sulliam is going to come down here and he's going to have a go at us in a minute.
We won't understand, though. You would know it.
The Qatar Airways of podcasting.
Oh, dear.
I think there are a few concerns just because we have to go back a long way to Haas for the last time a team came into the sport. And Haas's model was just perfect for, I don't know, getting their feet under the table, right? Because
cheap and cheerful.
Yeah, they had Dallara for the chassis. They had Ferrari for the power units. I'm not saying they had nothing to worry about, but they could really fully focus on what was happening on track because they didn't have any of these other distractions going on. Cadillac is going to have the challenge of building from the ground up and creating this power unit in the background. It could be a rocky first couple of years. Having said that, I am incredibly happy that they're going about it this way and they've been allowed to do it this way because it's what we want to see. We want to see these proper works teams, these manufacturers come in and really try and make it like they're there to try and win. You know, based on their approach that whether it will happen early on remains to be seen, but they are going to be there to win. The only thing, and I'm sure they don't need this advice because they'll be doing it anyway, 2025 is such a crucial year because I understand exactly what you're saying about the Toyota example, but from a budget cap perspective, they just need to invest as much as they can whilst they don't have that scrutiny this year. We've seen Williams over the last couple of years question the budget cap and how they haven't been able to fully invest because they're restrained by that. But also when the budget cap came in, there was just such a difference in infrastructure. Cadillac has the opportunity to just for 1 year at least completely make that obsolete and go all out. So I'm sure they will anyway. But if you were looking for advice, which I'm sure you weren't, Cadillac, there you go. One last question on this. We've spoken a bit on Cadillac and what drivers might be in the picture to get a seat. Taking away from who it might be, Sam, when do you think these decisions should be made? Do you think they should be looking to make them quite early on in this season, or should they be waiting for some of the market changes to flesh out and make a change later in the year?
For their driver lineups?
Yeah.
I'll give you a really boring answer now, but it feels like you wait for the right opportunity to strike. I wouldn't rush, is what I'm saying there. I wouldn't sit and go.
They shouldn't be leading. They should be following.
Yeah, I think so. I do think that because they're an unknown quantity, they need to keep a finger on the pulse of the transfer market between drivers. It's all well and good sitting there and go, right, we've got, Valtteri Bottas is a reserve driver at Mercedes. He's a safe pair of hands, and Sergio Perez has just been kicked out of Red Bull, so why not go for him? But you never know when a relationship might go down the toilet, or when someone might kick off and go, this isn't for me anymore, or when a rookie might absolutely demolish Formula 2 and you never thought to give them any time of day because they just weren't on your radar. But if you jump in too quickly, you close all your doors far too soon. They need to be a part of every single conversation. So every time a driver is speculative on where they're going, every time a contract starts to run down, every time there's a possible rumor that they might be looking to leave or walk out the door, Cadillac needs to have someone in the room going, could we be an option? Do we want to be an option? What are you willing to bring to the team? How much is it going to cost us to bring you to the team? And that's how I think they really spread their wings, find the best option for them, and deliver what is going to hopefully be a competitive entry when they do finally join the sport.
Okay, let's take our final break on this episode. On the other side, we're playing Late Faking. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for Late Faking.
This is the late faking game, where one answer is fake and the other ones are right. So help me Christ, I'll make my decision in a second, Sam. You're gonna have to wait, cause Ben made this game so hard, and I'm down by 5.
Big up to Hall of Famer Liv Laugh Latifi, as always, for that intro. Late Faking, 6 questions, and there are 4 answers in each question, but one of them's a pesky fake, and it's up to Sam and Harry to identify which one that is. Sam, you can start us off.
4, please, Ben.
Number 4. Which of these drivers has not won a championship at the final race of a season? So 3 of them have.
Going to stop there. Okay, fine.
One of them hasn't.
All right.
Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, Alain Prost, and Niki Lauda.
I'm going to go with Niki Lauda.
Niki Lauda has won a
Damn
championship
you, Niki.
at the final race of a season. Do you want to have a guess what the right answer was?
I didn't listen, so no.
Show me my options.
One of these days,
Higher.
Every time Harry doesn't listen to a question, I'm going to take a point off.
Doctor.
Start doing it. Put your foot down, man.
It'll be at minus 90 by the end of the year.
Oh, dear. Sorry.
Ayrton Senna hasn't won a championship at the final race of a season.
Damn, that Japanese Grand Prix. I thought that.
They'd always have Adelaide after, wouldn't they?
Of course they would. And I forget it exists because who cares?
People in Adelaide probably
People,
care.
Sorry to all of Adelaide. It's been a while since I've insulted a large region.
Good.
That's fair. Harry, over to you.
Number 4.
No, that's a joke.
Come on, man.
Number 1.
Joke.
Which of these drivers has not won a championship? Right. Number 1, I'm going to give you 4 seasons, and they aren't spring, autumn, and winter.
2020.
4 seasons. In 3 of them, there have been fewer than 4 race winners.
3 of them.
If that makes sense.
Okay, so one of them there have been
More than 4 race winners.
Okay.
4 or more race winners.
Gotcha.
2023, 2015, 1988, and 2008.
Oh, I really hope you throw like a rogue like 1962 in there because he never got that.
No.
It's Harry, probably find a way.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it?
2023, 2015, 88, and what was the last one? Sorry,
2008.
2008.
I really like that you didn't throw that in air continuity there. You just back and forth.
Yeah.
2008.
2008 is the correct answer. 2023, 2015, and 1988 all had exactly 3 race winners. How many do you think there were in 2008? Out of interest.
5.
Well, there were exactly 5. Well, it was Hamilton, Massa, Raikkonen, Kovalainen, Alonso. Oh, Sebi Vet.
I think you missed one.
Button? No, you're going to win then.
In 2008. Hamilton, Kovalainen, Raikkonen, Massa, Alonso, Sebi Vet, and
Bobby K.
Bobby K.
7 race winners.
Single-handedly won that Grand Prix.
No.
Sam, back to you. What number would you like?
I've gone with no, I'm joking. I've gone with 6, please, Ben.
4 drivers, 3 of them have had at least 50 starts for McLaren. One of them hasn't.
I keep wishing you'd stop halfway through the question.
I can. It'd just make your life a bit more difficult. You've got James Hunt. Or James Hunt.
Birds and cigarettes.
Men were men. Yeah, racing was racing.
Racing.
Yeah.
Nicky Lauda.
Nicky Lauda.
Ayrton Senna and Kimi Räikkönen.
I don't know, Jeff.
I love we do that impression, and James Hunt was terribly well spoken, but we always go into like proper geezer.
So eloquent.
We as fans, because that would make
Yeah,
more sense.
maybe. Yeah, let's go with that. Martin Brundle fans from the Senna.
The hooligans in Norfolk. Right, sorry. Kimi Räikkönen, Ayrton Senna, Nicky Lauda. Yeah, bunch of ants.
Blimey.
I think James Hunt had less than 50 starts for McLaren.
You are right to say that. He did.
Hey, Norfolk.
Of course you get the James Hunt question right.
Take all my clothes off.
Harry, back to you.
Nothing to do with James Hunt.
Just love late faking.
Oh, Ben, I've got no idea what numbers are left. Can you remind me?
You've got
2, 3, and 5.
No idea, but I was confused about Ben. Number 2, please.
Number 2, 4 circuits. 3 of them have started an F1 season. One of them hasn't.
Okay.
Brazil. South Africa.
Okay.
Is South Africa? Okay.
They're all World Cup destinations.
Yep. Austria. And Mexico.
Avocados from
Austria. Mexico.
Mexico's absolutely right. Well done.
I remembered something from 2020.
You did. I thought that was
Come on.
Sam, what number would you like?
Harry, hit the button.
3. 4 drivers. 3 of them are in the top 10 for points all time. One of them isn't.
Oh, they're going to be 11th, aren't they?
12. Nico Rosberg, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, Carlos Sainz.
Oh, I'm going to go Carlos.
You're absolutely right to go Carlos. Well done. Which means we go back to Harry at 2-2. If you get this right, sir, you win the game. But first, the even tougher question.
You lose a point if you get this wrong.
What number
5.
Oh, he's on it.
Yes!
Going to give you 4 drivers. 3 of them had a point after 7 races of the 2024 season. One of them didn't.
Okay.
Kevin Magnussen, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, and Daniel Ricciardo.
Kevin Magnussen.
It is not Kevin Magnussen.
Is it Danny Rick?
It's not Danny Rick. Miami, I think, was the 7th race.
He's about to have a great race in Miami.
Pierre Gasly did not have a point after 7 races of
Yeah, it's in the first half.
season.
in the first quarter.
Which means we end in a draw.
Oh, that's the nicest way for friends to end.
In a draw, yes.
Quite frankly,
well,
we've wasted your time.
A draw might be somewhat underwhelming to some of our fans. I don't know. But I can tell you something, that there is no chance whatsoever anyone would ever call underwhelming. It is the return. It is the first of 2024. It is the
2024
one and only. God damn it! I messed it up.
It's killed the whole speech.
Now a draw can be underwhelming.
LB question of the week.
Lovely. Yeah, it's the return of LB question of the week. And we asked the question, what did Alpine do to convince Franco Colapinto to join them as a reserve driver? And as usual, we have some wonderful answers.
There were a few that really caught my eye. And then right at this very moment, I've just seen this one from Tyler. Now, usually you have to really deliver a good joke, but it's just the way you've written this sentence. The Risatori likes the cut of his jib. And the phrase cut of his jib is a sensational phrase, and that deserves a place on this show.
Yep. JD Dunkley's made a really good point. Because Saudi Arabia has reinvested, obviously.
It's a great point.
It's not becoming a joke.
It already has.
Harry, I don't want to take this one because you have replied.
I know, you go for it.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. One Shade of Ginger, regular Discord member as well. He's doing what's best for him.
Come on. Excellent work.
Sensational. Ben, any jump out at you?
Yeah, there was one from Nico, and you'll soon see why I love this one so much, because his answer was, in case Doohan goes south and he replaces him. Yeah, fair point.
You got the point there.
Oh, good. My favourite kind of answers, people who just answer the question.
Mike said they couldn't get anti-Sonoda.
Obviously. Jana DeVos has said he secretly is one of Otmar's 9 kids.
There it is. Before that Joe was dying in 2025, you are wrong.
There's one here which I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it.
Oh.
Jim said he's been promised a bit of ghastly sausage. And they always smell good.
Well,
he's just an innocent butcher.
A new year, but still the same weird countdown from C&C Machinist.
They've started doing our non-question of the week posts.
Oh, no.
I like it.
It's because we weren't posting them for a little while. They've got to keep this up.
Oh, by the way, on that, if you were listening just before the Christmas break, we did a survey not that long before where we asked you to give some feedback on the podcast. There was one entry, and I can't possibly think who it was from, where it was the same number posted for every single answer.
Oh, no.
You are a menace to society.
I know who you are.
What happens if we block you? What do you do then?
But they're clearly a listener, so that's not.
Yeah.
I take this as a threat. Casey said this: Colapinto feels threatened by the international success of Mr. Bean. Now, any chance to get Mr. Bean on the podcast, I'm all for, because I think he's right up there with a Barry Manilow shout, if I'm honest. Caddy.
Sorry. Oops, All Legends on Twitter said he was going to go to Haas, but Gene doesn't know him.
Hey, come on. When is Dan has gone for, he's going deep undercover to bring down the French from the inside after Ocon stole his fastest lap.
Get him, Franco.
Oh dear. Oh, I've missed this feature.
I think it might be the best thing we do. All of it.
And is it because we basically don't make the content for it?
We just read stuff off of a page.
We just
Real correlation between good content and us not good.
Us not involved. Yeah. All right.
Any others, or are we done?
I'm not going to read it out, but there was one from Aris112, which is as long as War and Peace.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
TLDR. Let me know what the summary is.
I'm sure it's really funny.
ChatGPT maybe can summarize it for me. I like this final one from Stephen, who has come out and said, what about flip it on its head? What's your favourite biscuit to dip in tea? He's asking us the question. No one has ever asked us the question.
That's a very good point.
I don't think I'm prepared for this.
No, we got to answer the people.
I mean, a chocolate digestive is always worthy of a tea dip. And I love a hobnob.
I was going to say hobnob.
It's quality choice, hobnob.
Yeah.
Just say hobnob a lot.
Hobnob.
Hobnob.
I love a nice biscuit.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I was really expecting Harry to go, yeah, but what biscuit do you choose?
Thoughts on a bourbon?
Yeah, like a bourbon.
Has that ever been said on a podcast about F1?
There's a lot of things that have ever
You
been
take a
said on
bourbon
a
anytime.
podcast.
Yeah.
Wait, would you rather have a bourbon or a custard cream?
Custard cream. Love a custard
I
cream.
know, bourbon, I reckon. Bourbon.
Woo!
Do custard creams and bourbons exist outside of the UK?
I don't care. They should do.
What's your answer, Sam?
I'm a custard cream guy. K-Dog,
Kirsty?
I'd like you to hear, could you raise your left hand for bourbon, right hand for custard cream, please?
Oh, but it's going to be opposite because we're on the screen.
Oh,
Not enough truffle in either.
custard cream! Woo!
For people on YouTube, she just did this on screen. Oh, dear.
I think that's probably our sign to get out of it.
That is definitely the sign to go.
Oh, folks, thank you for listening to that. Let us know your rankings of those driver pairings. Let us know your thoughts on Cadillac, and let us know your thoughts on your favourite biscuit to Dunkin' tea, because that is the most crucial part of any F1 podcast. If you'd like to talk to us more about biscuits and tea, you can join the Discord. The link's in the description, or you can pay to talk to us about biscuits and tea by joining the Patreon. You'll also get to listen to other content, 2 other brilliant episodes a month, a historical review episode. We're about to review the 20... What year is it again, Ben?
14.
14.
Well, that's a worry.
I watched the wrong one. 2014 Canadian Grand Prix, and we're going to be reviewing that one this month. You get a beer with breaking, which we're recording together this month, very, very soon, which is going to be good fun. And then you'll get birthday shout outs and the like. And everything is ad free. So if you want to support the show, and you can, we understand it's not for everyone, that is the best way to do it, and it's massively appreciated. For us on social media, Late Breaking F1, watch this up on YouTube with your very eyes, Late Breaking F1, and we'll see you back again on a Sunday for another brilliant episode. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been slowly scolding.
And remember, keep breaking late.